Bisexual representation on television has come a long way, but there is still something particularly refreshing about seeing bisexual characters who are allowed to exist as complete, complicated people, rather than having their sexuality become their entire storyline. From coming-out journeys and messy relationships, to characters whose bisexuality is simply accepted as part of who they are, these shows have given us some memorable examples of bisexual representation on screen. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Pimento. What's up?
What's up with you? I need you to sign this report.
Okay, I'll sign your report.
Rosa Diaz is one of the strongest examples of bisexual representation on mainstream television. Her coming-out storyline is particularly effective because it acknowledges that even someone as confident and intimidating as Rosa can be nervous about telling the people she loves. Her fear isn't necessarily about accepting herself. It's about wondering how the people around her will react. The show then gives her something incredibly important: support. Her friends and colleagues don't suddenly treat her differently. Her bisexuality doesn't change the fundamental character we've been watching for years. Rosa is still Rosa. She's still tough, sarcastic, loyal, and occasionally terrifying. The fact that she continues to identify as bisexual, regardless of whether she's dating a man or a woman, is also incredibly important. The show doesn't fall into the trap of suggesting that her current relationship determines her sexuality. Revenge.
Over the past several months of my employment, I am ashamed to say that I engaged in an intimate relationship with the company's founder and CEO.
Nolan Ross is a fantastic example of bisexual representation because his sexuality is treated as a natural part of his character rather than his defining characteristic. Nolan is openly bisexual, has relationships with both men and women, and is allowed to be witty, vulnerable, loyal, ambitious, and occasionally morally complicated. He's also one of those characters whose sexuality feels integrated into his overall personality, rather than being introduced simply to create drama. What makes Nolan particularly satisfying is that the show doesn't require him to choose one side of his sexuality. Whether he's involved with a man or a woman, he's still Nolan. His relationships can be complicated for all the usual reasons. Relationships are complicated, without bisexuality itself being treated as the problem. That's an important distinction, especially when compared with older television portrayals where bisexuality was often used as shorthand for instability or deception. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
I don't know how, I don't know why, but I like ladies and I like guys.
Daryl Whitefeather's realization that he is bisexual is one of the show's most memorable queer storylines, largely because of how unexpected, funny, and surprisingly heartfelt it is. Daryl isn't presented as someone who suddenly has his entire life turned upside down because of his sexuality. Instead, there's a wonderful sense of discovery about his journey. His bisexuality becomes something he is excited to understand about himself, and the show allows him to experience that realization with humor rather than shame. It also helps that Daryl isn't reduced to being the bisexual character. He's a fully developed person with his own insecurities, friendships, relationships, and ridiculous musical numbers. His bisexuality is simply another part of him, and that's exactly the kind of normalization that representation needs. The Good Wife. Kalinda Sharma is a fascinating example because her sexuality is never presented in a particularly conventional way. Kalinda is private, confident, and fiercely independent, and her relationships with both men and women are simply part of the larger picture of who she is. The show doesn't always make her sexuality easy to categorize, but that's actually part of what makes her interesting. She's not required to sit down and give the audience a perfectly packaged explanation of her identity. Instead, viewers get to understand her through her relationships and behavior. Kalinda is also a reminder that bisexual representation doesn't have to revolve around coming out. Sometimes a character can simply exist as bisexual and move through the world without needing to justify it. Orange is the New Black.
I'm a part of a community, and I have a girlfriend. I have a girlfriend that I love.
Piper Chapman provides one of television's more complicated explorations of bisexuality. Piper has meaningful relationships with both men and women, And the show doesn't pretend that attraction and relationships are always neat or straightforward. Her relationship with Alex is obviously central to the series, but Piper's history with men remains an important part of understanding her character. The show also explores some of the uncomfortable assumptions surrounding bisexuality, including the idea that being attracted to more than one gender somehow makes a person less capable of commitment. Piper is certainly a messy character, but that's part of what makes the representation interesting. She's allowed to make mistakes, hurt people, fall in love, and change without her bisexuality being reduced to a convenient explanation for her behavior.
I will always love you.
Grey's Anatomy.
I thought you came here to apologize.
I can't apologize, Calliope. I don't understand what happened or where I went wrong.
Where you went wrong?
Leviticus, thou shalt not lie with a man as one lies with a
don't
female.
do that,
It
Daddy.
is
Don't quote the
abomination.
Bible at me.
Callie Torres is one of the strongest examples of bisexual representation in long-running network television. Her sexuality becomes particularly significant because she has meaningful relationships with both men and women throughout the series. Importantly, the show doesn't suggest that her attraction to women invalidates her previous relationships with men, or that dating a man somehow makes her less bisexual. Callie gets to experience the full spectrum of romantic life: love, heartbreak, marriage, divorce, family, jealousy, happiness, and everything in between. She's also an ambitious doctor, a mother, a friend, and a deeply emotional person. Her bisexuality is an important part of her story, but it never becomes the only thing the audience is supposed to care about. That's exactly why Callie became such an important character for many viewers. Legends of Tomorrow.
What's wrong with you people? Do you want to get shot?
Maybe it's that polyblend pantsuit that's got her so grumpy.
Sarah Lance is one of the standout bisexual characters in superhero television. And there's something particularly satisfying about seeing bisexuality represented in a genre that has traditionally been dominated by heterosexual heroes. Sarah is a time-traveling superhero, captain, assassin, and leader, but she's also bisexual, and the show allows all of those aspects of her identity to coexist. Her relationships with men and women are treated as genuine, and the series doesn't imply that being with a woman somehow changes her sexuality. Sarah's character is also important because she's allowed to be confident about who she is. Her bisexuality isn't constantly framed as a source of angst. She can simply fall in love, flirt, have relationships, and move forward with her life while saving the world along the way.
Did you just call me your girlfriend?
What makes these examples especially important is that the best bisexual representation isn't necessarily the representation that gives us the biggest coming out speech. It's the representation that allows bisexual characters to actually live. They can fall in love, screw things up, have terrible relationships, have great relationships, be villains, heroes, parents, friends, professionals, and complete disasters, while still being bisexual. And that's probably the biggest step forward in representation. Bisexuality doesn't have to be the storyline. Sometimes it can simply be part of the character. Thanks for watching the Pride channel. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comment. Until next time, stay proud.